Hey hustlers, welcome back to Premium Hustle. In this episode, we are going to be talking about Elizabeth Holmes, formerly a well-respected visionary and inventor, who at the age of 19 attempted to merge the IT and healthcare industry with her company, Theranos. In 2015, Forbes named Holmes the youngest and wealthiest self-made female billionaire in America on the basis of a $9 billion valuation of her company. In that same year, journalistic and regulatory investigations revealed doubts about the company's blood testing technology claims, concluding that Holmes had misled investors and the government. In June 2018, a federal grand jury indicted Holmes and her Theranos chief operating officer, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud, with the victims being investors, doctors, and patients. Upon meeting him when she was 18 years old, Sunny wasn't just her business partner, he was her lover, 20 years her senior and married to someone else. A businessman who made $40 million in the dot-com era in 1999. But before we get started, I want to remind you to subscribe to this channel if you want to continue to see true money crime content. And please turn on the notification bell so you won't miss an episode release. Also, I want to thank our sponsor, Harmony Desk. If you've been checking out my IG stories, you've seen me post pictures of me with my Harmony Desk. Creating a pleasant workspace is essential to my success. Whether I'm standing or sitting, my Harmony Desk has proved to be the best piece of equipment or furniture I have ever experienced. It's made out of quality wood, making it durable, sustainable, renewable, and biodegradable. It's a smarter, healthier, and more flexible way of working. My good friends at Harmony Desk, an amazing team of entrepreneurs, have gracefully decided to gift all of my supporters. If you enter Sansaray20 during checkout, you will get a much deserved 20% off discount. Go to us.harmonydesk.com and purchase your Harmony Desk today. Thanks again to Harmony Desk for their sponsorship. Elizabeth Holmes was born February 3rd, 1984 in Washington, D.C. Oh, that's my stomping ground. You know, that's where I come from. Sometimes I miss the DMV area. One side of her family was computer engineers and the other side of her family was medical professionals. During high school, she was interested in computer programming and started her first business selling C++ compilers to Chinese universities. A compiler is a computer program that translates one computer code written in one programming language into another programming language. In 2002, Holmes attended Stanford, where she studied chemical engineering and worked as a student researcher and laboratory assistant in the School of Engineering. While visiting Asia, she witnessed a SARS outbreak and was determined to change the world. Once she returned to the United States, she sought out a patent for a wearable patch that can continuously test the blood of its wearer. It would also administer the proper dose of medicine. Elizabeth was very close to her uncle. He was also her inspiration after he died of skin cancer. She had a fear of needles herself and expressed to her medical professor while she was attending Stanford University that she wanted to perform blood tests using only small amounts of blood. However, her professor tried to explain to her that it would be impossible to do a vast amount of tests and retrieve data from a few droplets of blood derived from the tip of a finger. Instead of listening to her professor in 2003 at the age of 19, Holmes dropped out of university, founded the company Real Time Cures in Palo Alto, California, pitching the idea of performing blood tests using only small amounts of blood. Later on that same year, she renamed the company Theranos. Her office used to be in an unsavory part of town. That would all change after Elizabeth was almost shot and killed in the parking lot of her office building. One of her former neighbors invested money into Hotmail and decided to invest in Elizabeth's company by giving her $1 million. It was easy to receive money from investors in the IT industry, but she struggled to get investors inside of the medical industry. Medicine and chemistry is a more complicated field than information technology. Like, it will take you decades of research to be able to understand medicine. But with IT, come on, a child can code. Computers are easy. Y'all know that now that everybody got one. But back in the day, y'all was like, what is this that y'all doing on the internet? Ever since the pandemic, y'all love the internet. But before that, y'all was like, what is this? Only nerds be on it. Anyway, Anyway, by the end of 2003, investors had put out millions of dollars to help Elizabeth. Let's talk about blood testing for a moment. Elizabeth was promising a revolutionary blood analyzer that could run hundreds of tests with just a finger prick, adding the blood to a cartridge called a nanotainer that would then be inserted into a machine she called Edison that would run tests and send the data via the internet to a tech who would interpret the data and send back a report within minutes. For those of you that don't know, Thomas Edison was a whole fraud, so it's interesting that she named it that. This chick thinks she real slick. This chick is slick. Oh, I'm gonna make a video about Thomas Edison on Premium Hustle another day. He was known for pushing inventions he hadn't even created yet, but anyway. Traditionally, phlebotomists would withdraw a tube of blood from a vein and then send the entire tube to a laboratory for testing. The results would take a few days to come back, and the machines that they would use in order to test the blood were 10 times the size of the Theranos Edison machine. The Edison was designed to make the process faster and skip needing a physician altogether, and this explains why most of the professionals inside of the medical field refused to invest. First of all, they didn't believe that this could be something that happened, and number two, the Edison would eliminate a lot of high-paying jobs inside of the medical industry. Each part of the Edison was supposed to do multiple tests conducted by different components, basically little machines inside of a big machine the size of a personal computer. However, these components and their functions will ultimately interfere with each other because of heat, light, or electrical activity. Also, there weren't enough test samples because there wasn't enough blood. The machine was partially operating properly. The transfer of fluids was messy and little small explosions took place inside of the machines often. After the machines began to continuously fail during demos where she displayed a prototype to executives and investors, she would have their finger pricked and their blood added to the nanotainer, then place the nanotainer into the machine, go have a meeting or give them a tour of the facility, maybe go to lunch. While they were out, an engineer would grab a sample of the blood and test it, so when they came back they had data and results for the test. Investors like Tim Draper, father of Elizabeth's childhood friend Jesse Draper, was a venture capitalist. He gave Elizabeth $1 million. Rupert Murdoch, entrepreneur in the media industry, basically the guy that owns Wall Street Journal, he invested in her too. I'm gonna talk about him again later on, you're gonna see. The Walton family founders of Walmart and Sam's Club, they invested in her. Cox family, Enron, Apple, Oracle, all invested in her. Do you know, how much pull you would have if those people was backing your business? Economist George Shultz joined the Theranos board of directors and then brought in the Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger. Channing Robertson left his position of tenure at Stanford University to work for Elizabeth at Theranos. A confident 19-year-old female in a male-oriented industry, Elizabeth aligned herself with the most powerful, wealthy businessmen, using her charm instead of proof that her machine actually worked. So many people believed in her and were impressed by her intellect, sense of integrity, sales and marketing skills, and the dream pitches of revolutionizing healthcare. By the time 2010 came, Elizabeth raised $92 million in venture capital. She embodied trust and emotional appeal. That's what people liked about her so much. They would compare her to Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, even Archimedes. But Miss Fake It Till You Make It was holding a lot of secrets. She tried to make it seem like she was so secretive because she didn't want other companies finding out how she made the machine that she made, when really the machine just didn't work. She had no idea what she was doing. And also nobody else knew that she had a secret relationship with her COO Sonny. Nobody even knew that. They had no idea that them two was in a full-blown relationship. Little sugar daddy, sugar baby situation. This is the second video where I did a sugar baby and a sugar daddy dynamic. Check out the last video. I was talking about Erica Jane and Thomas Girardi. Sonny didn't join the company until 2009. However, the two started dating in 2005, unbeknownst to everybody around them. They even lived together. What was also mysterious about Elizabeth was her obsession with black turtlenecks, her baritone voice, and some said that she didn't even blink. You do know that scared people too. People were scared because she ain't blink. I'd be scared too. I'm scared of that dude on TikTok that don't blink. You know what I'm talking about?
There is no such thing as a coincidence. You still live a life that you dread.
Excuse me.
shit, my eyes dry with me blinking. Ain't no way in the world I wouldn't be able to blink. I wouldn't trust nobody that don't blink. I wouldn't work for nobody that don't blink. The only other person that was obsessed over black turtlenecks was Steve Jobs. He wanted to simplify his routine. Most of Elizabeth's mannerisms were similar to Steve Jobs. She would even use some of Steve Jobs' tactics with employees. She would push the engineer team to work 24/7 and apply pressure to the engineer managers. Baby? 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 Hey.
Lights.
Yeah, it's the lights.
Lights on. Lights. Lights. Great book.
Come here.
Oh. Lights.
See, camera. Lights, camera. Yeah, see, there's a camera and there's a light back there.
Camera.
Camera, that's right. Don't be surprised if I finish this video and I got a whole nother outfit on. Gotta finish it a whole nother day.
1 week later.
So I'm back. Whole new day. Sorry, you know, I don't have a lot of time to myself as much as I used to. I'm a mom now, so he came first, so I was like, I gotta do this another day. But anyway, people believe that her baritone voice is fake and she uses it to sound more authoritative and to command respect.
No, it hasn't. Well, if I use traditional words to describe what we're doing, it's hard because people then associate it with conventional processes for analyzing drugs and development.
In 2013, Theranos partnered up with Walgreens and Safeway to launch an in-store blood collection welfare center. With little proof that the machines worked, both companies gave Theranos $105 million in investments and loans. Theranos would run tests on third-party machines, and they misled Safeway and Walgreens executives as if the results or data came from the Edison. Safeway spent over $300 million on renovations to create space in their stores for welfare centers where customers could be tested. Meanwhile, Sonny was intimidating the employees, watching them through CCTV footage. Any person who spoke against Elizabeth or tried to blow the whistle was either fired or resigned. They would chastise any person who worked under 8 hours a day, encouraging cynics to leave. In 2014, she moved her facility to Silicon Valley in the Stanford Research Park. Silicon Valley is a global center for high technology and innovation. It's the main reason why I chose to move to the San Francisco Bay Area. I had been in IT for many, many years in Atlanta, and I wanted to come here and just start taking my software engineering career a little bit more serious. So I had tried to learn more codes. I just tried to get on the level where I could be a part of the Silicon Valley professionals. And I'm telling you, these people are on a whole nother level of intellect that it just impresses me. Like, I learned so much from people just in the Bay Area in general. The San Francisco Bay Area is home to many of the world's largest high-tech corporations, and Silicon Valley also accounts for 1/3 of all of the venture capital investment in the United States. More tech companies are in the surrounding areas such as Palo Alto, Santa Clara, and San Jose. Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, and Mark Zuckerberg have all spent time in the Stanford Research Park. In 2015, the FDA approved some tests that Theranos had created, which was a test that detected herpes. So this was a big celebration for her. She was going through so much. Everything was seemingly going downhill. Then that victory came and, you know, gave her a little hope, you know, gave everybody that was working with her a little bit of hope. In 2015, she was also appointed Harvard Medical School Board of Fellows. She was also named as Time Magazine's 100 Most Influential People of the World. She also received the Forbes Under 40 Award. She was Glamour Magazine's Woman of the Year. She was getting so much media coverage and loved the attention, but she had everyone fooled. Even Barack Obama made Elizabeth the U.S. Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship. In one of her TED Talks, she spoke of her relationship with her uncle who died of cancer, one she claimed she was close to. However, later on it was revealed that she used his story for personal gain and exploited his death just to push her false narrative. Elizabeth started started making a plethora of unethical decisions. She began running pilot tests on cancer patients through the company Pfizer, knowing that her products weren't working. And this is where it gets sad for me. This is the part of this story that just breaks my heart so much, because I don't know, it just hits home for me. And if you've been watching me on my regular channel, Sansaray Monique, you'll know why. Like, if you've been watching me for years, you'll know why this part of this story just hurts my heart so much. So Ian Gibbons, the chief scientist of Theranos, he was a British biochemist who held a doctorate from the University of Cambridge and worked for 30 years in diagnostic and the therapeutic industry before joining Theranos in 2005. Gibbons knew Elizabeth lied to her employees and executives and investors at Theranos Technology. He also knew about the false demonstrations, and filled with distrust, he still continued to struggle to make the machines catch up to the hype they had. Henry Mosley, the chief financial officer at Theranos, was fired by Holmes in November 2006 for questioning the reliability and integrity of the company's lab testing systems and equipment. After he found out that she was misleading and manipulating investors, Elizabeth never hired another CFO ever again. Sometime in 2011, Gibbons became involved in a patent theft case involving Theranos and this guy named Richard Fuez, an entrepreneur and inventor who was also a former friend and neighbor of Elizabeth Holmes and her family. He filed for a patent for an invention that would require Theranos to contact him for licensing, and this compelled Theranos to file a lawsuit against Fuez, alleging that he misused Theranos' existing patent to patent his own invention that was for a physician alert mechanism and testing device. While researching his defense to the Theranos lawsuit, Fuez cited that Gibbons was named as the co-inventor with Holmes on the Theranos patents. Fuez also claimed that there were similarities between Gibbons' Theranos patents and those that Gibbons had filed while working for a previous employer called BioTrack, and this made Fuez request that Gibbons be questioned at a deposition. After being subpoenaed, Gibbons was very distraught. His job and livelihood was on the line. He had already been demoted, and at age 67, he believed that it would be impossible for him to get a job. Theranos was actively discouraging him from testifying, even getting a lawyer to send him a mock-up doctor's note in order to excuse him from the May 17th, 2013 deposition. On the evening of March 16th, Gibbons took a combination of medication and alcohol. Being as though he was a biological scientist, he knew the combination would be fatal. The following morning, he was discovered by his wife Rochelle on the bathroom floor, unconscious and barely breathing. He died 7 days later at the age of 67 of liver failure in the hospital. Elizabeth nor Sonny showed any concern for his passing. They didn't even bother sending condolences to his family. A Theranos attorney sent his wife an email requesting she immediately return Gibbons' company laptop and any confidential information he might have had in his possession. What a bitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? Like, ugh. This is when this chick started disgusting me. I was like, oh, she's such an amazing person. She's so intelligent. You know, she just seemed to be so bright and had such a great future. And it was just impressive to me just to see what she was trying to do. That ambition. And sometimes, you know, when you are trying to be successful, failure is something that you experience. No person who is successful, no person who has invented anything, who is a business owner, who is an entrepreneur, has avoided failure. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's failing at this machine and she tried hard, but she kept failing. But then as the story goes along and I started reading more into this woman, I was like, there's something going on with this. She got an ugly, real ugly, cold side to her. Richard ended up having to settle the lawsuit for $2 million, which his pride was damaged. He still had the passion to destroy her and Theranos. Sonny began misleading investors with financial forecasts that were 10 times higher than the internal forecast. The numbers were fabricated because they hadn't had a CFO working there for the past 7 years. Employees were forced to sign non-disclosure agreements when they started working there and even when they left the company. This is why this facade lasted for so long. It lasted for an entire decade. Like, how she managed to do that was because she was so secretive and she wanted everybody else around her to be as secretive. So Richard, you know, the guy that was filing the lawsuit against her and ended up having to settle for $2 million, he decided to team up with Gibbons' widow, Rochelle, and a whole bunch of other people who were skeptics of the Theranos company. Once they believed they had compiled enough proof, they took their evidence to John Carrier at the Wall Street Journal. Now remember, I said that Elizabeth, one of her investors, was the owner of the Wall Street Journal. These actions would be the cause of Elizabeth's demise. Finally, a plethora of sources and former employees began speaking publicly about Theranos. In response, Theranos hired private investigators to stalk and harass anyone who was sharing their experiences with Theranos to the Wall Street Journal. Elizabeth threatened to sue anyone who spoke against her for defamation. She also asked the owner of the Wall Street Journal to pull any articles that would ruin the Theranos name. He refused to do so and insisted that he trusted his editors to make the proper decision associated with the information that they had received, encouraging them to find out the truth. October 15, 2015, an article written by John Carrier was finally released in the Wall Street Journal. People began questioning Theranos and the secrets behind their machine's malfunctions. Instead of avoiding the questions, she simply began answering all of the questions and continued to mislead the public. This time, her charm and deceit was ignored, and other media sources and people in positions of power began to start asking some serious questions. And then she appeared on Mad Money.
For the last few years, Theranos has been viewed as a revolutionary company. CEO has been heralded as next Steve Jobs. The company's been valued as much as $9 billion in its most recent round of fundraising. But Theranos also has its critics. And just this morning, the Wall Street Journal ran a pretty scathing article about the company, alleging that the company's proprietary testing devices may be inaccurate and basically accusing Theranos of deceptive practices. The article was pretty brutal. But here on Mad Money, we know something. We know that there are two sides to every single story, which is why I think it's important that we speak to Elizabeth Holmes, the founder and CEO of Theranos, who's coming to us this afternoon from Boston, where she's attending a meeting of the Board of Fellows at Harvard Medical School, to give her a chance to answer the charges raised in the article. Ms. Holmes, welcome back to Mad Money.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth, I have to tell you, in all my years, I can't recall a private company that I have to candidly, many have never heard of, getting this kind of attention and scrutiny. What do you think's going on here?
This is what happens when you work to change things. And first they think you're crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world. And I have to say, I personally was shocked to see that the Journal would publish something like this when we had sent them over 1,000 pages of documentation demonstrating that the statements in their piece were false.
When the FDA caught wind of the article, they began doing the proper investigations. In January 2016, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Service did an inspection in the Theranos, California lab. They found out that Edison machine could only effectively perform 12 out of the 200 tests Elizabeth claimed it could do. Even then, the results were erratic. They uncovered irregularities with staff proficiency, procedures, and equipment. They sent a warning letter to Theranos after an inspection, and by March of that same year, regulators proposed a 2-year ban on Holmes from owning or operating a certified clinical laboratory after the company had not fixed the problems. Afterwards, without seeing any other fair option, Walgreens canceled Theranos and closed its in-store blood collection centers. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration also ordered the company to cease use of its capillary tube nanotainer device. 2017 turned out to be one of the worst years for Elizabeth, and it went downhill after that. The state of Arizona filed suit against Theranos, alleging that the company had sold 1.5 million blood tests to Arizonians. Is that what you call somebody from Arizona? Arizonian? I don't know what you call it. While concealing or misrepresenting important facts about those tests, they were still sold to the people of Arizona. 2 other class action lawsuits against Theranos was filed. 99% of the Theranos shareholders reached an agreement with the company to dismiss all current and potential litigation. Now remember, I told you in the beginning, all of these people were putting so much money. They were putting millions and millions of dollars into our company. They were putting in shares. And so they agreed to not go into litigation at all if they could just get their stock back, basically the money that they paid for the shares back. In 2018, the SEC charged Holmes and Sonny for fraud by taking more than $700 million from investors while advertising a false product. And in that same month, they settled that lawsuit. The charges of fraud included the company's false claim that its technology was being used by the U.S. Department of Defense in combat situations. That's one of the biggest lies Elizabeth told. Oh, I'm working with the military. Oh, I'm working with the pharmaceutical companies. Okay, yeah, all of that sounds good when it's coming out your mouth, but when it's not real, it's a problem. So she definitely admitted that that's what she did, and they settled the lawsuit. Also, in 2014, Elizabeth lied and said that the company was making a $100 million revenue stream when really all she had made was $100,000. In October 2019, Cooley LLP, Holmes' legal team, in a class action civil suit, requested that the court allow them to stop representing her, stating that she had not paid them in a year for services, and that given her financial situation and hardship, they had no expectation that she'd pay it. I mean, she basically broke, so where's she gonna get some money from? In February 2020, Holmes' defense requested a federal court to drop all charges against her and Sonny. In July 2020, prosecutors filed a third superseding indictment, adding a 12th fraud charge relating to a patient's blood test. The criminal trial of Holmes began on August 31st, 2021 in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California after being delayed for over a year due to the COVID-19 pandemic and Holmes' pregnancy. Using the damsel in distress my sugar daddy forced me to do with defense, she claims that she was misled by her staff about the technology and that her ex-romantic partner, Sonny, who is also facing trial, held influence over her during the romantic relationship they had, which was still ongoing when they allegedly did the criminal acts. However, there was too much evidence that proved otherwise, like the demonstrations that she participated in, the falsified validation reports, the misleading claims about contracts, and the overstated financials at Theranos. On January 3rd, 2022, Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She faces a maximum sentence of 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 plus restitution for each count of wire fraud and for each conspiracy count, all because she wanted to fake it until she made it. Child, is it that deep? I honestly feel like she could have told all of those people in her life the truth, because those people had mad respect for her. Like, I was watching this documentary on HBO, and even inside of the documentary, it was a lot of people in there that still spoke with her with a level of respect. I mean, their tone was still positive in regards to this woman. So I think she just had a lot of promise, and I think had she not made it seem like she had like completed everything and everything was good money, I think, you know, she possibly could have one day became the person that made some type of machine, you know, that could test blood. Remember, the machine could test about 12 things. So that's better than nothing. You know, she could have worked on that. Instead of 200 tests, 12 tests, you know what I mean? So I appreciate you watching Premium Hustle. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Hopefully this is something I will be able to stick to. As you can see earlier in the video, it's kind of hard, but I'm going to keep trying, okay? I appreciate you being here. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and if you have any case that you want me to talk about, you let me know, okay? Have vision and stay focused. Namaste.